On tonight's Wales at 6, as the government announces a review of the country's maternity services, we speak to the parents of Etta Lily. She was just 4 days old when she died following serious failings at Ysbyty Gwynedd in Bangor.
It's a failure of basic care. It's resulted in a death, one that could have been avoided. They need to ensure that this doesn't happen to anyone else again.
Also tonight, turning the tide on the way water companies are regulated. It could mean a bigger workload for Wales, but will it stop sewage spills in our seas?
Plus, I'll have all the news and politics dominating the debate here at Llanelwedd on the first day of the Royal Welsh Show.
And the storm clouds have certainly gathered in the skies. Of course, it's been quite a wet day one. But what about the rest of the week? I'll have the details for you later in the programme.
Hello, good evening to you. Etta Lily Stockwell-Parry was just 4 days old when she died following serious failings at Ysbyty Gwynedd in Bangor. Tonight, her parents, Laura and Tristan, share their traumatic experience in the care of Wales's biggest health board, just a week after the Health Minister announced a national assessment of all maternity and neonatal services across the country. Sean Jenkins has tonight's top story.
In July 2023, Laura and Tristan Stockwell-Parry became parents for the first time, with the birth of their little girl, Etta Lily. The pregnancy had been a smooth one, but upon her birth at Ysbyty Gwynedd in Bangor, Etta was very unwell.
She was born in a very poor condition. She was limp, grey, lifeless. We were ready there to hold our newborn baby, and they took her to resuscitate her.
Yeah, a lot of things going on, and just feeling confused.
Etta was taken by ambulance to Arrow Park Hospital on the Wirral to receive specialist care. But over the course of 4 days, Etta's condition deteriorated, and on the 7th of July 2023, Etta passed away. The cause of her death was brain damage due to a lack of oxygen and blood flow. A serious incident investigation identified that midwives had failed to notice that Etta had stopped growing on 3 different occasions.
Which you can see clearly here on the growth chart.
And there were also failings during Etta's birth itself.
The CTG was picking up my pulse rather than Etta's heartbeat for 43 minutes.
After the inquest in May into Etta's death, the coroner concluded that there had been several serious failures to provide basic medical care. She described the case as one of the most troubling she'd ever dealt with. Charlene Francois is a midwife with almost 40 years of experience. For 27 of those, she's been an expert witness, giving her professional opinion in cases all over the world, including in Wales.
How would you describe what you read when it came to Etta's case?
Poor care, a breach of duty, and making you feel ashamed that you're a midwife, really.
Could Etta's death have been avoided?
Yes, and if she had been transferred to the labour ward for continuous monitoring because she was a small baby, yes.
But for Laura and Tristan, these mistakes have scarred them forever.
It's resulted in a death, one that could have been avoided. They need to ensure that this doesn't happen to anyone else again.
Such a harrowing story for Laura and Tristan, and their story comes after a string of independent reviews in other health boards. What has Betsy Cadwallader said in response?
Well, Andrea, they said that they wish to express their deepest sympathies and heartfelt condolences to Laura and Tristan following the heartbreaking loss of baby Etta, and they fully acknowledge the profound impact that the tragedy has had on the family. They also say that since the tragic event of July 2023, they've conducted a comprehensive review of the care they provide, and they've taken decisive action to address the issues identified. And they also said that they're committed to learning from this experience and have introduced a range of measures to enhance their training and clinical oversight to ensure the best possible care for both mothers and babies.
As you mentioned, other stories in other health boards. It's a Wales-wide issue, isn't it?
Absolutely, Andrea. Yeah, you mentioned at the top there that Jeremy Miles, the Cabinet Secretary for Health, has already begun this national assessment into maternity and neonatal services, and that's following his announcement that maternity services in Swansea Bay will be raised to level 4, which is one level below special measures. All of maternity services in Cwm Taf Morgannwg have been in some sort of monitoring since 2019. So yeah, it's and that, as I say, that national assessment sort of saying and telling us all we need to know about the current state of play in maternity services across Wales.
And lots more to unfold. Sean, thank you. And you can watch more on that story on tonight's episode of Abida Bedwar. That's at 8 p.m. on S4C, and the programme does have English subtitles. Elsewhere, Wales will have its own watchdog looking into water prices and pollution after a landmark review into the industry. The abolition of the current England and Wales body Ofwat could see Natural Resources Wales take on the economic regulation as well as environmental. Well, our national correspondent Rob Osborne is live for us in Ogmore by Sea this evening. That's a bay that has sewage discharged in just the last 24 hours. Rob, the quality of our water is a long-standing issue, isn't it?
Oh, how many times have we talked about it, Andrea? Constantly in the news, isn't it? The quality of our water, what is being put into our seas and our rivers. In fact, where I'm standing, about 100 yards or so, there is a sign right now warning people who are trying to get onto the beach about the poor quality there is just in this area. So this review by Sir John Cunliffe has concluded that the current system just doesn't work. That means goodbye to the regulator Ofwat. Hello to what? Here in Wales, there will be a new body responsible for water, as you say. But who should it be? Should it be an entirely new agency or our current Environment Agency, Natural Resources Wales? Well, they are controversial. Andrew R.T. Davis, the former Conservative Senate leader, today said they were a failed quango. Others say they don't already use the powers that they have, and they have financial pressures and questions over leadership. So what do Natural Resources Wales think of it all? We asked them.
And it's important with any system that you keep checking back and you keep reviewing. Is that still the best way to do things? And it's okay to say that, no, it's not the best way of doing things now, and we need to improve and we need to do better. And there are different ways of doing these things in the day and the time that we're in now. So that's, I can think, kind of what we can do next is just criticise ourselves a little bit more. Think about what we can do differently as a whole, not just as NRW, to do things better in the future.
So, Rob, we've had this big review. When will we see any changes?
Nobody knows. There is no date. We will have to wait to see what ministers here will say with this new power and that question over who exactly will be overseeing such an important aspect of our utilities. OK,
Rob, thank you. And more coverage on that independent water report is coming up on the ITV Evening News.
Coming up in the programme, the unlicensed driver who inhaled laughing gas behind the wheel and killed a pensioner. Kane Byrne was speeding when he hit 81-year-old Graham Slynn. Today, he was sentenced to more than 11 years in a young offenders institution. The government pulls the plug on the water regulator and the other changes coming for customers. And the last training session for the Lionesses before they face Italy in the Euros semi-finals. And do join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Mary with you shortly. Before that, though, the First Minister faced farmers at the Royal Welsh Show today, the first time since she said they were worth just 1% of GDP to the Welsh economy. Aline Ed-Morgan had a warm welcome last year, but how about today? Well, our Rural Affairs correspondent Hannah Thomas is in Llanelwedd for us this evening. Good evening to you, Hannah. So what was the reception like today then?
Well, it was an interesting reception, Andrea, because towards the end of her session, there was some heckling and some challenging questions were put to her about the predicament of the farming industry in Wales. Farmers always remind her that the agricultural sector is the bedrock of the multi-billion-pound Welsh food and drink industry. Well, Lewis Rhys-Jones is in the food hall for us tonight. Lewis.
Good evening to you, Hannah. Yes, indeed. I'm in the middle of all the food and drink producers at a very busy Royal Welsh Food Hall, where this sector contributes nearly £25 billion to the Welsh economy every year. Farmers would argue they underpin that industry. But bringing things back to politics for a minute, we've been gauging the sense that the First Minister may not be the flavour of the month here. The First Minister put on a brave face as she arrived to face farmers on the showground. And there was plenty up for debate, from the sustainable farming scheme to addressing her recent remarks in the Senedd, saying that farming contributes less than 1% to Wales's GDP.
I'm glad I'm having this opportunity to explain my words in the Senedd.
So, did she realise how much anger it would cause among the farming community?
There's lots of things that that don't have a monetary value, like the fact that they protect the environment, like the fact that they sustain the Welsh language, like the fact that they are absolute guardians of the countryside and are going to be critical to the fight against climate change. So those are things that don't have a monetary value, but are absolutely critical to us all across Wales.
It was a year ago on this very showground that Eluned Morgan announced her campaign to become the new First Minister with much excitement and fanfare. But as we know, a lot can change in 12 months, and off the back of her recent comments about the agriculture sector here in Wales, let's find out how the farmers are feeling about it all.
It's a bit of a kick in the teeth, isn't it? You know what I mean? For the work we're doing and the way we're trying to adapt with how the things are moving forward. You know, all farmers are willing to change. Obviously, we've got to have to change to move business forward. But, you know, there's pros and cons to everything, isn't there? Do you know what I mean? You know, we're willing to change, but they've got to work with us.
It makes you feel undervalued, doesn't it? And all the work that gets put into it, it's a lot of effort. And to hear something like that, then it's quite disheartening. I think it's very difficult, especially for the youngsters coming through now. You know, there's a lot of pressure on them, especially when they're starting off.
They just think that farmers are on the take. We're not. We feed the country. And if you didn't... COVID was a prime example. It took 3 days for the shelves to be empty. Well, if the farmers stuck together, it wouldn't take long for the shelves to be empty again, would it? Let's face it.
While those taking to the rings are hoping for some good fortune this week, unions say their members are desperate to share that same optimism for the sector's future.
Long term, you know, we've got to have stability in this in industry, and the allocation of budget, I would hope that one time that there will be a multi-annual approach to funding, which allows businesses then to plan forward.
I'm not sure if it's right to tie the hands of the next government.
The First Minister may hope her visit at this year's show will help secure some rural votes in 2026. But it seems some farmers on the showground think it's high time for change. It's worth reminding ourselves that we are less than a year away from the next Senedd election. This is the last Royal Welsh show before we take to the polls in 2026. So perhaps it's not surprising that people in and around the showground have politics on their mind at the moment, whether it's the sustainable farming scheme, the inheritance tax, or whether people are just fed up with politics altogether. A lot of people are keen to get their voices heard on the showground this week and making sure the politicians hear them clearly. Hannah.
Lewis, thank you very much indeed. Well, staying with politics, and the UK Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has been visiting the show today, trying to garner rural support for her party ahead of next year's Senedd elections. Well, our political editor Adrian Masters has been speaking to her, and he joins us now. Adrian, what did she have to say then?
It was her first visit since becoming Conservative leader, Hannah, and her first since that huge loss that the Conservatives experienced at the last UK general election. So she's been meeting farmers here on the showground and their families, and I'm sure enjoying the shows like we have, along with some senior Welsh Conservatives, and talking about how she's going to lead a fight back, or she hopes she'll lead a fight back at Westminster. But sooner than that, sooner than the next UK general election is, as Lewis was just saying, the Senedd election next year, and it looks far from good for the Conservatives. Our last poll put them in a dire 4th place, so they've got a year to try to turn that around. And while the farming community should be fertile ground for the Conservatives, it should find a lot of support amongst the people here at this, there's some evidence that they may be turning to another party in the shape of Reform UK. So when I spoke to Kemi Badenoch earlier on, she said that the Conservatives were backing farmers. Labour wasn't able to do that. They were the only party that could speak for the farming community. That's what she's saying and hoping. I guess you'll be hearing from them whether they are still supporting her.
Indeed. Adrian, thank you very much. Well, you've been able to see the Ukrainian Cossacks going on behind me this evening, and the horse section here at the Royal Welsh has held up pretty well this year. But restrictions around the blue tongue virus have seen some livestock numbers suffer. There are no goat classes at all, and beef cattle entries are down by a third. Our reporter Ness Jenkins has been finding out more.
Hard work pays off. The Tuckers from Gower are taking home 5 rosettes, including for Best Senior Charolais Bull. But he was the only competitor in his class. English and Scottish exhibitors can't compete because of blue tongue restrictions.
It has taken away, a slight aspect of the sort of impact of winning in a big class. So there's, there is that element. But like I said, there's the champion. You always go in against others. Then, so if you win a champion, then you've beaten a good crowd. Then it is always nice to go up against people from across the border. But equally, when people are bringing more from Wales, it's quite nice in our own show to be able to showcase our sort of the Welsh stock as well.
Some of the other breed classes also saw a limited number of entries. And spectators certainly noticed a real difference.
It's a shame that people can't bring animals from Scotland as well through England, which seems a bit unnecessary.
The blue tongue restrictions were probably necessary. It's really noticeable this year. There are far fewer entries, especially in the Highlands.
And obviously the people from Scotland or England can't come this year, so obviously there's brilliant cattle and everything, but it's not quite the full job.
Last month, the Welsh Government announced that most livestock moving into Wales had to be tested for blue tongue beforehand. So that was going to affect the Royal Welsh.
The number of livestock are down this year, including here in the Hereford's cattle lines. But only 2 weeks ago, there were 2 confirmed cases of blue tongue in Herefordshire, just over the border. That's the county next door to this Royal Welsh show.
And for organisers, preventing the disease from spreading here was always a prize worth protecting.
Clearly the planning for this show has been far more challenging than normal given the disease situation. Blue tongue is something we've kept an eye on for several months now, and as the disease has developed and the picture and the landscape across the country has developed, it sadly meant that we haven't been able to allow cattle, sheep and pig exhibitors from England and Scotland to attend to the show. Real disappointment for us as show organisers clearly, but we've got to do the right thing.
That means a different level of competition in 2025. But the battle for best in show is still a tough one indeed. Ness Jenkins, ITV News in Llanelwedd.
Well, elsewhere, Princess Anne paid a visit to the showground today in her capacity as President of the Royal Agricultural Society of the Commonwealth. She attended the organisation's annual general meeting and was given a tour of the 2025 Royal Welsh Show. Well, Ruth will be back here in Llanelwedd with the weather forecast in just a few minutes. But until then, I'll hand you back to Andrea in Cardiff.
Hannah, thanks for giving us that taste of the showground on day 1. Well, some significant sports news for you now. And Steve Tandy has been appointed as the new head coach for the men's national rugby team. The Scotland defence coach, originally from Neath Port Talbot, says he hopes to rebuild the national side ahead after a long run of losses over the last 2 years, twice earning the wooden spoon in the Six Nations. Issa Farfor reports.
It's a new era for Welsh rugby and a new man trusted to write a new chapter. Steve Tandy has been tasked with leading the team to the 2027 Rugby World Cup in Australia, with rugby bosses confident that he's the man to deliver.
Steve's had to come through a really rigorous process to get to this point, and at every stage he demonstrated real standout qualities in each of the things that we were looking for.
The Welshman played over 100 games for the Ospreys before becoming head coach at 32. He later took on coaching roles with the British and Irish Lions and recently Scotland. Now at 45, he returns to Welsh rugby with the challenge of rebuilding a national side in transition and reigniting a fan base hungry for success.
We recognise that if we just stand still and just do the same things, we have no right to expect different results. So there's a lot to change, there's a lot to do, but I think it's really exciting times ahead for Welsh rugby.
Warren Gatland stepped down after this year's Six Nations, leaving Wales coachless after a record run of defeats. Now Tandy takes over in September, with the autumn fixtures already looming large.
You know, success takes a lot longer to indoctrinate, so I hope we're going to see some real highlights in performances in the short term, but let's not kid ourselves about how long we've got to go.
With the eyes of a nation now firmly fixed on him, Steve Tandy begins the biggest chapter of his career, determined to restore pride in the red jersey. Isa Farfour, ITV News.
Now, the first car to ever cross the 150-mile-per-hour threshold has returned to West Wales Beach, where it broke the record 100 years ago. The iconic 1923 Sunbeam 350 horsepower, better known as Bluebird, secured the world land speed record on Pendine Sands on this day in 1925. Today, a special event was held there to celebrate the centenary. We sent Mike Griffiths along.
Back on the beach, where it made motoring history. Bluebird might be driving at a fraction of its legendary top speed, but you'd hear no complaints from its many admirers gathered here today.
7 miles, dead flat sand, hard packed sand, absolutely perfect. What was needed to do 150 miles an hour 100 years ago today, and that's why we've got the car here to actually celebrate its centenary. Malcolm Campbell managed to take this car 156 miles an hour one way and just over 150 the other way, averaging 150 miles an hour. First car in the world to do that.
You could feel the kind of intake of breath from everybody here when the engine started running, even though it didn't go very fast. To experience it, to be in front of it, was amazing for people here.
Well, it's just raw power, and it took over 2,000 hours just on rebuilding the engine. So much work and passion, and it's just raw power. It just wants to go, and people connect with the history of it.
10 years ago, Bluebird made a triumphant return to Pendine, restored to working order for the 90th anniversary. A true labour of love for engineers at the National Motor Museum in Bewley.
Grandfather was surprised at the attention he was getting, and he suddenly became quite famous, and people were wanting to be the fastest man alive, and they had to beat my grandfather. And as soon as my grandfather's record got beaten, he thought, I want to get the record back, because he became almost obsessed by being the fastest man in a motor car initially, and then later on in a boat. 10 years ago, I was fortunate enough to be invited to drive the car on the beach here at Pendine. Only allowed to do about 50 miles an hour, but you really appreciated the size of the car, the restoration work that Bewley have done, and the task that my grandfather had of doing 150 miles an hour. And to do that with no seatbelt, a leather flying hat, goggles, +4s, a shirt and tie and a jumper.
Engineers here will tell you Bluebird's still capable of its old speed. Crowd control and the site's proximity to an MOD firing range meant that was out of the question today. But those who made the journey to witness it say they've had an unforgettable brush with history. Mike Griffiths, ITV News, Pendine Sands.
Fantastic sight, albeit under cloudy skies there. Well, to the weather now, and it was a mixed bag over the weekend with sunshine and showers. So will you need both your sun cream and your wellies this week? Well, Ruth should be able to tell it because she's in Llanelwedd for us. I'm sure you've experienced all of that today already, Ruth.
I tell you what, Andrea, absolutely. It's the sort of weather that, frankly, just plays havoc with your wardrobe choices. So my advice over the next few days, if you're heading to the show here at Llanelwedd or anywhere else out and about, take your waterproofs and take your sun cream with you. It's the weather doing as it usually does at this time of the year. But yes, welcome back to the showground. The Cossacks have been and done their thing. They're now setting up behind me for the Interhunt team relay, which is always fast and furious. So if you do hear any noise, that's exactly what's going on. Certainly not going to be any cheers for the weather that we've had today, and actually the first day of the show, as we've been hearing, we have had rain. And I've been saying, as I mentioned, to everybody, bring your wellies, bring your waterproofs, because unfortunately there is more rain to come over the next few days. Of course, it's the start of the school summer holidays, isn't it? But it's not going to be a washout for everyone every single day. It's that case of if you catch the sunshine, it'll actually feel quite pleasant. So let's take a look at the next few days in more detail.
Midday Mayan temples, followed by sunny afternoons on the sand. TUI sponsors ITV Cymru Wales weather.
Well, unfortunately, we have to start by talking weather warnings because we still have a yellow weather warning to be aware of further thunderstorms. That runs until 9 o'clock tonight and covers much of the north and east of Wales. And if you take a look at the picture here at the moment, well, actually, the skies behind me are turning greyer by the moment, so there will be more rain here in Llanelwedd, more heavy showers across much of Wales into the overnight period. And as I mentioned, there could be a few rumbles of thunder, not particularly pleasant conditions, but there'll be plenty of dry spells and looking at a lot of mist and low-lying cloud as well. Temperatures hovering at around 15 or 16 degrees, so nothing too troublesome here. As we wake then to tomorrow morning, like this morning, we could see a little bit of mist and murk, so quite a grey and gloomy start to the day, and again there will be further showers. But these will start to ease during the course of the morning. The weather warnings run out, so nothing too troublesome here. And on the whole, into the afternoon, save for maybe just a few showers, we should see something a little bit drier. Sunshine, though, like today, in rather short supply for many areas. And as a result, the temperatures tomorrow hovering at around 20 in Celsius, so feeling all very average and nothing too exciting. But actually perfect conditions if you are coming to the showground. It's really better, more comfortable weather just for wandering around, and I'm sure the livestock prefer it as well. As we head through then towards the middle of the week, guess what? Yes, more of the same. So again, always a chance of a few showers. Wednesday here at the showground is Cobb Day. That is always busy. So if you are coming, bring your waterproofs and maybe a jumper because temperatures still struggling. If it's warmer temperatures, drier weather and sunshine you're after, you're going to have to wait until Thursday and Friday. We will see things turning an awful lot more cheerful and those temperatures will start to rise as well.
TUI sponsors ITV Cymru Wales Weather. Making the most of summer. Piri sponsors ITV Pollen Count.
Well, of course, the unsettled weather is better news if you are suffering with hay fever at the moment. We're in between grass and weed pollen seasons. Generally low levels during any of those showers, rising to moderate, though, as the weather settles towards the end of the week. So yeah, bring your wellies, bring your waterproofs, bring your sun cream. In fact, basically just bring the lot would be my advice for the next few days. There are signs though that perhaps for next week, of course, school summer holidays week 2, we could see something a little bit more cheerful. Just a little bit though.
In the meantime, be prepared. Ruth, thanks very much indeed. And let's hope that it doesn't stop play that rain at the Royal Welsh at all this week. And that's it from all of us here for this evening. Kate Lewis will be back with your late update. That's after the news at 10. But for now, from all of us here, bye-bye.